Hello, and welcome to another live stream from Save Your Sanity podcast. I'm Dr. Rhoberta Shaler, and my guest today is my friend and colleague, Tracy Malone. And I'm so excited we're going to have this great conversation. And you know that we do here great conversations as well as talk to you directly, just me talking to you directly about wonderful things you need to know about those relentlessly difficult people I call hijackals. And Tracy spends her time talking about narcissist abuse support. And that's really important for us all to have that. So welcome to the show, Tracy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a long time. I miss you.
I miss you too. We have lots to catch up with because I know you've been busy. And so today we decided that one of the good things for us to talk about would be a subject that both of us have to help people with, which is protecting yourself when divorcing a narcissistic hijackal. And the big question comes, okay, you made the decision to divorce. Why is it so different to divorce a hijackal? What do you need to know, and how do you protect yourself? So, we're going to talk about those things. But before we do that, Tracy, why don't you tell people a little bit about your story and what got you into having to know all these things?
Well, like most people that end up in this situation, we got here because we were victims and we had to learn what we had to learn. My divorce, I did not actually understand what a narcissist was, despite the fact that I had 7 trials. And the divorce just kept going on, and I kept saying, why? And I didn't learn about narcissist until afterwards, and after I had another relationship with another terrible, I think, sociopath, crazy person. So I learned, I studied, and I haven't stopped studying, and I started coaching about 4 years ago. So I'm just exposed to so many survivors, their stories, their journeys, and so it puts me in a unique place to share what I know.
Yes, and you had some physical violence, didn't you?
No, I had an arrest. The boyfriend after the divorce called the police and had me arrested for coming to forgive him for sleeping with someone else. And so I spent my 24 hours in jail. And when I got out, someone said, he's gaslighting you. And I looked it up, and, my life unfolded. So that was the
Yeah.
bad part. I was accused of domestic violence and had to take domestic violence classes and, do my time, sort of speak, for going to his house. So, yeah, that's my background.
So that's really important for everyone to know because, we can look just fine. We can be sitting up and taking nourishment, going to work, raising children, making an income, driving, managing, going to the grocery store, and we can be being abused. And we might not even recognize it. One of the things that happens in so many of these cases, and I know it's true for people you meet as well as mine, um, they were just really good-hearted people that kept wanting to make it work, make it work, make it work. I can turn myself into a pretzel. I can become a bit of a doormat, anything to make it work. And so you don't really get involved with what's wrong with the other person. You get super involved with what am I not doing right?
Right. Yeah. And we put the blame on ourselves, and
Right.
we take it on as a load to trying to do better. And that's part of the gaslighting of a narcissist, is when they tell you and that they, blame you for something, or tell you you're not doing right, or whatever it is that they're gaslighting you about. We want to do better. We just want, oh, I can fix that. But we're never looking at them going, why are they acting this way? We are taking it upon ourselves. And that's what victims do. They internalize the feelings and try to do better, which is why we get stuck in these bad relationships.
And we keep hoping. We get hooked on hope that the person who love bombed us, the person who made us fall in love with them because they were so perfect, we keep hoping that person was the real person and that they're coming back soon. And you can get them to come back if you simply will be good enough, kind enough, patient enough, undemanding enough, put yourself at the bottom of the roster, all of that. And we're getting some feedback from your speakers, Tracy, so maybe you could turn them down. But it's really important for us all to know that once you wake up and smell the herbal tea, you will have a situation like Tracy was speaking about gaslighting. What's that? Oh, is that what was happening? So let's just talk about that for a minute, and then we're going to talk about protecting yourself when divorcing one. But gaslighting means that somebody else wants to define your relationship for you. They want to define your life for you. They want to define your identity for you. So they'll say things like, I know you better than you know yourself. You don't even know your own mind, let me tell you. Or they'll be less direct and they'll say, oh, you're remembering that wrongly, silly you, right? And they're constantly painting that. What's your experience of gaslighting?
Well, gaslighting, it comes in so many different forms. It is, mental manipulation to make you think, again, you've done something wrong. You have the experience that we've all heard from the gaslighting movie from the 40s that, the gaslighter moves something and then, is blaming you for you can't find your pearls, right? And so there's all sorts of different areas that they can gaslight you in. Gaslighting people during divorce is very often connected to, if you divorce me, you'll get nothing. I'll take the kids and you'll never see the kids. So it puts the fear inside of you. My gaslighting was, 1,000 shades of I wasn't right. I wasn't perfect enough. I had to do better. I wasn't there for him, when the reality was he was never there for me and I was always there for him. And that's the gaslighting, the lying, if you would, to tell me that I have to do better. And so I did. I kept trying harder, but the reality was I was already doing it all. And I just was listening to his recording of, hey, if you only did this, if you were a better wife, if you were a better girlfriend, you'd service me better, if that would be a good explanation. But it's all about mental manipulation to make you feel that you've done something wrong and internalize something that isn't yours to hold.
Mm-hmm. And so it moves in really well into talking about divorcing a narcissist because, as you said, they will start with that. Don't you ever think of leaving here because you'll leave with nothing. I will take the kids and they will never speak to you again.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still getting a lot of feedback from your speakers. Um,
They're
but
almost off.
but this
Move
is
my mic back.
this is the important part for everybody, is to get to what makes divorcing a narcissist different than divorcing somebody that you both say, well, this just isn't working, let's figure it out and make it as painless as possible. What is it that makes it so different to divorce a narcissist?
Well, it's a game. It's a game to a narcissist, and you're the mouse, and they're the cat, and they want everything, and they want you to get nothing. In their eyes, there's black and white thinking that goes on when the discard happens. So in the love bombing, you're in the white part of their brain, and in the divorce, you're the enemy. So you become the enemy, and all of the years in between are completely gone. There's you're either good or evil. And so when you become evil, they must destroy, because that's part of the game. It's I'm not going to let her get away with that. She's not going to get this. He's not going to do that. And so they begin to try to control you. And that's kind of, the biggest part is they will do anything. And that means smearing you, lying, false allegations. False allegations in a normal divorce are not really present. It's just, we want to end this marriage and have a nice day. A false allegation that you're a bad parent as they try to take your children away is a tactic that we see so often in narcissists, even if they don't want the children. They just don't want you to have them. So the tactics that they use and the tricks that they pull on people are unbelievable. And I have a book coming out. It's called You Can't Make This Shit Up, because everybody comes to me and just you're not going to believe my story. You can't make this up. And after 3 people said it to me in one day, I was like, you're right. This is the title. This is what people are coming and saying. This is so unbelievable. And so, yeah, that's where we are.
Yes, well, let me say something about these people who don't really have a great love for the children, but just don't want you to have them. I think it's really important for us to put this in this conversation, Tracy, because I was in a Facebook group this morning just answering things for people. And someone said, asked a question, like, what's going on here? There was some parental alienation going on, and so I just made this statement. When you're dealing with a narcissist or a hijackal, in my terminology, because you don't know their diagnosis. They may have traits of being a narcissist or a sociopath or a psychopath or a borderline, but you don't know the clinical diagnosis. So I created the term hijackals so we could just talk about their behavior. But what's really true about hijackals is they don't have the best interest of the kids at heart. They have what you said. They just don't want you to have them. But here is what the problem is. It is that a hijackal has children in order to do three things for them. And they will only validate children for these three things, which is agreeing with them, serving them, and making them look good.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not doing one of those three things, like, okay, your mother can have you, or your father can have you, or I don't care, go play, I don't have time for you. And so those are very important things. But when it comes to the divorce process, they become pawns and messengers and weapons of war. And this is very, very difficult. Those three things I talk about so often on video and on the podcast, save your sanity, because when you decide to divorce, you have to know this is going to happen. And this is very hard on you, and it's very hard on the children, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really hard to watch the children be pawns, to watch the children not want to go off to mommy or daddy's and have them clawing at your leg. Don't make me go. Because when they go there, they have such a horrible time. And, a narcissist demands loyalty, even from their children. So if the child is clawing to mommy's leg, they're going to put the child into the black and white thinking. So when they get to daddy's house or mommy's house, they're going to abuse them. They're going to be angry at them because they weren't loyal. And so it's not always a good situation. And of course, at that point, what they're doing is they are turning the children against them by being mean to them. And so, but then it gives them a really good excuse to blame you for the alienation.
Well, it's true. And, I do a lot of graphics on my Facebook page that's at facebook.com/hijackals. And you spell that hijack, ALS. And one of them is that a narcissist or a hijackal will demand loyalty from you, but they will never give it to you. And it's very important for that because they won't be loyal to those children. Those children will all of a sudden have a nanny as soon as they're at their house because they don't care that much. So one of the things you need to be ready for is this weaponry that's going to become your children's lives. You're not good enough. Now, you brought up a really good one earlier, Tracy, because they like to decide and tell everybody that you are not a good parent. And at the extreme, they will tell Child Protective Services you're not a good parent. It's frivolous, it's made up, they're not accurate, there's no evidence for it, but it goes into the record. And they see that as one way to win over you, don't they?
Oh yeah. Well, those false allegations that I was referring to, and even my false allegation that I did something wrong when I came to forgive him, those mean nothing to them. This is the perfect example of no empathy. They don't understand that by accusing you of being a bad parent or, touching your little girl or whatever it is, that they accuse you of these horrific things, and they don't really care what that does to you emotionally, what that does to you in the court system. They just want to win. The whole black and white thinking comes in where what they're doing to you means nothing to them, and yet it's destroying your life and potentially your children's as well.
Well, there's a second part to that. Yes, they're out to destroy you because they do need to win. And the secondary part is they don't care if they destroy the children.
Right.
And so, you think of a little person who has a mommy and a daddy and has, two parents, whether same sex or a mommy and a daddy, and they're attached to both of them. They're equally attached to both of them. And in the case of children who are the biological children of the pair that we're talking about, they have each half of their DNA. So when you start bad mouthing or you start trying to create division and you start to try and tell a child that you can't be part of your mother's life or your father's life or whatever, that really at a deep deep level, particularly if the children are younger than 6, will affect them for a long long time, because basically they feel it must be my fault.
Yeah.
It's a really sad thing to. So what else do we need to be ready for when we're going to divorce one of these relentlessly difficult people?
Well, I think it's about preparing for the battle. It's putting your armor on and understanding that your emotions are going to be all over the place. And so getting a good team together, whether it's a coach, a therapist, pulling together a good mediator, obviously a good lawyer, right? You're building a team that is going to support you through this emotional turmoil, because being accused of things from someone you've been married to for 20 years is going to hurt you, and you're going to be very confused by why are they lying, why are they doing this, why did they say I stole money. All of these things are going to come out, and you're going to be an emotional basket case, which is what they want. That is their goal. And so if you can get enough support and you can bring people in that are going to say, well, this is why they're doing that, and it takes some of the sting away from it, to know that it's just a tactic and it's not really the truth. So I think I tell people all the time, if they're accusing you of being a bad parent, your job is to prove that you are a good parent. And it's about pulling the evidence together, knowing your truth instead of owning that you've done something wrong, and holding on to that, because that's where we go down the gutter into this very dark place where you don't even want to get out of bed. You give up the battle, you give up the fight, you surrender, and they win everything. So holding yourself together is going to stop you from going down that rabbit hole and be able to fight with the armor on.
Yes, I so agree with that. And, people come to me and they say, I'm at my wit's end. I just want to leave. I just want to take the children and leave. I don't care if I get anything. And I am like, no, don't do that. Hold the phone. And they'll say, well, why not? I mean, I just can't deal with this anymore. And I'll say, well, here, if there isn't physical or sexual abuse going on, take a breath. Because if you leave right now with the clothes on your back and you take the children, you are going to be in the condition that you are right now emotionally, except you're going to be sitting somewhere that you may or may not be able to afford, wondering where to start. If there isn't physical or sexual abuse, I say, do your work first to become empowered, to try new skills, to express boundaries, to practice having healthy self-esteem
Mhm.
and know what to do. And then I will help you, or I'm sure you help people to do this. Identify what's really going on as opposed to what they're making you feel is your fault.
Mhm.
And the education piece.
Yeah.
And then make new changes, demonstrate those changes at home, demonstrate those changes everywhere, let your children see these, and then make the decision to leave. Because there are many people who have to wait for a while. The children are in a certain circumstance, or they're the wrong age for leaving, because there are ages that are wrong for leaving. And so we need to know those things. They're important too.
Yeah. And I think one of the important things for people to understand is know your triggers. They already know your triggers. If you don't know your triggers and all of a sudden they do it, it's like an attack, and you don't
Yeah.
understand where it's coming from. You don't understand the value of them lying to you. Every time they lie, you curl up in a ball, and it's, it's bringing up all this stuff. If you understand that when someone lies to me, I'm going to feel this way, then you can sort of, I don't know if it's a brush off, but you can lessen the pain of that lie in the defense of I'm not a bad parent, right? So knowing what your triggers are and like writing them out. I feel helpless when someone does this, or, look at how you feel, because it's the feeling you're going to feel first before you understand what the trigger is. So like, oh, when he did that, that really triggered me. When she, did this, and wow, that's what it is. And then it de-escalates some of that trauma from the surprise of what they're doing to you.
Yes, and you feel very empowered when you can stand in it rather than withdrawing and going into what did I do wrong and I'm always a problem, and keeping your stance where you are and being able to say, oh, he or she is lying again. Just identifying what's going on can make a huge difference. Instead of second guessing yourself, just give a name to the behavior that's going on, and that can begin to distance you from thinking that there is fault and emotion and emotional facts that are being bandied around that are not accurate in any way.
Right. Yeah, that's the key. I mean, it's really, if you understand what's going on, you have this sort of inside knowledge. It's when we don't expect this kind of attack from the person you've been sleeping next to for 20 years that it hurts even more. So to understand what your triggers are is going to help you a lot.
It sure is. And before we talk about the biggest mistakes people make, I just want to tell everybody where to find Tracy. And that's where you'll find her at narcissistsabusesupport.com. It doesn't say narcissistic. Notice that. It says narcissistabusesupport.com, because heaven knows there are so many sites talking about these things that you can't find one to use. So narcissistsupport.com, and you know where to find me if you ever want to talk to me. Find me at forrelationshiphelp.com. So let's move on and let's talk about the biggest mistakes people make when they're divorcing a narcissistic hijackal. Because first, we've already identified one. They do it when they're feeling disempowered. And if you can catch yourself up with yourself, you can get into some strength, you can see the behaviors for what they are, you can stop taking them on yourself, you will feel empowered, which is a much better way to go into the divorce process. But then what are the mistakes that people make, in your view?
I find that the biggest mistakes are when your lawyer makes normal decisions that for a normal divorce would just be standard. Say, mom is going to pay for a college. So I have an example where a friend of mine, the father was very wealthy, and he said in the line, "Dad pays for college." That was the line in the decree. Well, when the kid got into Brown, the mother was like, "Okay, here we go, $60,000. And Dad said, "Oh no, I'm just paying for community college." So she had to go back to court and file that. The gray area of defining what is the budget for college. When does it, who's taking this responsibility? Who's got this stuff? And if you don't think about the gray areas of what they can do, you're going to end up in like big trouble and taking them back to court. If they are supposed to pay you, say, equalization payments or even alimony, what if they don't pay? I have a client, I went to court with her. He was supposed to sell a house and give her the money, and it had been 2 years. It cost her $30,000 to take him back to court. And she invited me and said, "It's going to be a shit show. Would you like to come watch?" And it was so cool to watch because he really did bury himself. But it was him not like selling the house and not taking responsibility. 2 years, $30,000. If she had had a clause in there, not saying he should sell the house and give her the money, but he should sell the house within not just 30 to 60 days, but by August 16th, right? You have to pick a date, because they can just say, "Well, I didn't know when the 30 days started,"
Well,
right?
let me add something to that, Tracy, because it is such a good point. I I am a professional mediator, so I have
Mhm.
mediated a lot of divorces for my clients here in California. And I tell them all the time something very similar to what you're saying. So I'll just put it in this language. Never have anything, as Tracy calls it, a gray area, but that uses a word like someday, we'll figure it out at the request of nothing. It has to be fact. It has to be a time, how long, what time of day. So don't allow for an example that your divorce decree says every other Christmas. No, it has to say every other Christmas, starting with 2020 for the mother. And Christmas is said to extend from
Mm-hmm.
7 p.m. on Christmas Eve until 9 a.m. on the 26th of December. And
Yes.
it has to be very, very specified.
Yes.
Everything
Yes.
and way more detail than you would ever think. Because why? You're
They're
not dealing with a reasonable human.
right. They're going to take every opportunity to manipulate that contract because in their eyes they don't have to pay. That woman that I went to court with, whose husband hadn't paid her all the money that he was supposed to, they asked the judge, Judge, it just cost us $30,000, and 2 years later he didn't sell it. What do we do? And can we get legal fees? And the judge said, I would sure like to, but it wasn't in the original decree. And then they said, well, how about interest on the $300,000 he hasn't given her? And they said, I would love to, but it wasn't in the original decree. So protect yourself by putting everything, all those details. What if they don't pay? What if they don't pay alimony? Well, you're going to take them back. What if they don't give you the passport so that you can go away and now your $5,000 trip is canceled because they didn't choose to give you the passport? And if there was a date in the decree that if I'm traveling, I want the passport in my hand 30 days in advance, not the day before, not the night before, and not never. And if you do that, here's the consequence. You're going to pay back my trip. You're going to pay my legal fees to chase you down. Then you're protected. You have to protect yourself in a way that most people don't even think about, especially lawyers. They just put that standard daddy's paying for college and have a nice day, you won. And then it doesn't happen, and you end up in another $30,000 battle.
Yes, and let me say something about the $30,000 battle. The goal of a hijackal is to win, and winning means to make you spend all the money you possibly can. And they love it. And if you don't have the money eventually to go to court, and they do, guess what? Right? So remember too that that's a mistake, is that you will understand that they will bring frivolous things to you, and you have to have an attorney who understands the frivolous nature of these things, and that the attorney is not a hijackal who thinks that, oh, I got a live one here, we're going to go to court for forever.
Mm-hmm.
Again, another piece that you can make a mistake when you're divorcing a hijackal. Because remember, you were attracted to a hijackal. You're used to them. They're familiar. So when one shows up in attorney's clothes, you may fall for that one too. And you have to be extremely prepared for choosing an attorney. And that's a whole other show. I've done that before with Kristen Walker. And we've done one. Sorry, we've done one on choosing a therapist, and with Jason Levoy, who is a divorce coach, and he is an attorney. And I did one on choosing an attorney with him. So you can go back and find an episode of Save Your Sanity on divorce, which is important for us to know. So the idea that it's going to be quick is just something you need to disabuse yourself of, because divorcing a narcissist is designed by the narcissist to be lengthy and very costly. and costly in every way, not just money, but strain and stress and anguish and anxiety and high cost to your children. They will do and say things that will make you make that Solomon's choice. Like, am I going to put my kids through this?
Mm-hmm.
And this is why you need help on this process. This is why you need help, because you're in it. And someone like me, I am a therapist, Tracy's a coach. We can see what you can't see because you're in it. You're up close and personal with it. And it's really important to get help with that.
Yeah.
Really important.
I think that another mistake that people make is after the divorce is over, they go, okay, I'm done. They don't go on to heal themselves. And like after my divorce, I didn't heal myself. I got scooped up by another one, and it was a more dangerous type of person. And, you know, if I had done my work, I had learned boundaries, I had learned self love, I wouldn't have tolerated that sort of thing again. So it makes us very vulnerable if we don't do some healing, even after the divorce. It's not
Oh,
over when the divorce happens.
a year. People ask me all the time, when can I date? I say, one trip around the sun and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I'm going to be so lonely. Oh, not nearly as lonely as you were in that marriage with that narcissist.
Yeah.
And it's very important to give yourself, as Tracy says, time to heal, time to see the forest for the trees, time to see what happened, get some distance, see how you were lied to, how you were manipulated, all those things, because it's still going to be ongoing, and see all that. And I just want to give a shout out to Karina and to Liberty who are listening. And um, one of them says, and I won't disclose people, but one of them says, I'm going through this exact thing right now.
Mm, yeah.
And so I'm glad that you're listening, because these are very, very important points for you. And again, if you want to talk to Tracy, find her at narcissistabusesupport.com. You can also go over and view her YouTube channel. It's very entertaining. It's not only is it content rich, but it's fun to look at. youtube.com/C/Tracy A. Malone. You want to come over and talk to me, there's over 500 videos there for you at
Hi.
forrelationshiphelp.com. Lots of things for you to find, and find me at forrelationshiphelp.com if you're looking to talk to me. So these big issues, there are many of them. And I think we've made it pretty clear. I hope you'll agree, Tracy, that there are differences, and that's why we wanted to do today, to protect yourself when divorcing a narcissist, but to understand and give language to what those differences are. Because you may think that it's going to be like everybody else. The person's different, but you may think the divorce will be similar, and you really need help to walk through that. And we're available to help. Now, is there anything that you think we may have not said that is very important to say?
I think knowing your truth and not listening to the gaslighting, not holding the lies, but knowing which battles to fight and using your lawyer with that kind of information. You might be barraged by 1,000 texts in a week, and they're yelling and they're screaming and they're name calling and they're attacking, and sometimes these things don't really need to be answered, but they do it to push us and to get us into that place of fear and that place of insecurity. So when we understand that this is just a tactic, and you can talk to your lawyer, what do I have to answer? Even in court, what accusations do we have to focus on? If they're accusing you of stealing money, fine, here's the statements. I didn't steal any money. Use proof and evidence to defend all the lies, because your proof of that you're a good parent is the way out of this. When you are so bogged down by the, how could they say that I'm a bad parent? And you get real small and you get real like, oh, I don't know what to do. That's when they start to walk all over you. It's almost like a decoy, right? A diversion. So you're sitting here panicking about this thing while they're hiding in assets and, doing other things. So know what is the truth and know what battles to fight is probably the biggest piece of information, because we often fight. My divorce was $100,000 and we had
Mm.
7 trials, and I fought every battle, and I'm like, no, I'm not that. And I look back now and I go, well, that one didn't even matter. So why was I so obsessed with proving the truth? The truth is your truth, not their truth. And so hold on to what you know about yourself and how you move forward, and that's your power.
Absolutely. And stick to the facts.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course, there may be times when you get emotional, but that's not a tactic. That's real when it shows up. We want to stick to the facts in court. We want to stick to the facts and allegations. We want to stick to the facts and our evidence. Time, dates, keep fabulous records of everything. If you don't have that right now, go back, even put approximate dates on times, what they did and they said, and all of those things, so you have a good record of what actually occurred. I know you don't want to walk through it. It's painful, it's awful, you don't want to remember it all, but if you're going to divorce a hijackal, you really need to have evidence, and it needs to be fact based. You'll have friends who remember things that happens. They'll remember when it happened. You can get some help with that, or maybe you have a parent or somebody close who's observed that or had to do the babysitting unexpectedly because things didn't go well. Lots of things going on. So we could talk forever, but thank you so much, Tracy, for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this has been a great conversation with my friend and colleague, Tracy Malone. You can hear all the good things she has for you. She's walked through it. I've walked through it. That's why we do what we do. And so go and find her at narcissistabusesupport.com, and always come over and listen to the podcast. On Save Your Sanity podcast, there are 150 episodes there for you. Every aspect of what you might wish you were listening to, finding, need to know in the middle of the night while you're chewing your fingernails down to the quick. It's there for you. I don't want you to feel alone, so I've done all that for you. And I hope that you will subscribe so that you can stay tuned. If you're watching on YouTube, click the subscribe button and the bell next to it so you'll know when there's a new Facebook Live that could help you, because it always comes through on YouTube. And until we talk again, take very good care of yourself because you matter. Bye bye.